Welcome to the channel, everyone. I've got another RV project I'm working on. Actually, it's an accessory for the truck, but it protects the front of the RV. And I'm talking about a heavy-duty mud flap, goes across the back, fastens into the hitch, and this will protect the bottom lower section of our fifth wheel camper. Now, I was looking online, and most of them to buy, they start around $300. And I thought, I like building stuff, I like doing stuff myself, so I'm going to see if I can just build my own. And I started on this the other day and I didn't get any video of it, but I'm going to show you what I ended up with, what I decided to go with. All right, what I did, I got a ball mount and I got a piece of 1-inch black pipe, regular plumbing pipe. And I welded this right to the top of here. I could have put it underneath, I could have flipped this down, but I played around with it and I wanted a little bit more protection. Anything I would have done different, this pipe would be underneath the bumper a little bit, and I was worried about stuff coming through the top of the mud flap and hitting the camper. So this seemed to work out the best. Now, the ones I've seen that go into the hitch like this, one of the biggest issues is you put the pin in and there's still a lot of slop in it. So let me show you how mine works. Okay, that thing is rock solid. No movement whatsoever. So let me show you how I did it. First thing I did, I cut this down a little bit. I cut about 3 inches off the back. I wanted it to sit a little bit closer, and I drilled new holes in here for the pin. And on the inside of this side here, I welded a nut in there. Only on one side, and I'll tell you why. I was trying to come up with a way to bolt this in, but if I would have just put a bolt through here and a nut and tightened it up, it'd end up collapsing this receiver and it would warp it, might not get this in or out anymore. So I welded a nut into one side, and then I made my own bolt that threads into there, and then it's got a blank shaft on the end of it. And let me show you how I built this. I started with a 1/2 inch bolt, 1/2 inch by 1 inch, and I had a 7/16 bolt that I cut this shank out of here with no threads on it. Once I had that cut off, I ground one end to a taper, so it had a bevel all the way around it. And this is a piece of channel, but a piece of angle iron will work. I put my bolt in there, set my other 7/16 piece in there, and I used a piece of sheet metal. I don't have it laying around right now, but I just bent a piece of sheet metal to put underneath this 7/16 bolt for a shim, and that shimmed it up so it was the same, it was hit dead center of this 1/2 inch bolt. I clamped that together and then just welded it around. Tacked one side, spun it, welded it up, and that come out nice and true. And then I just run it on my bench grinder, clean all this up. I run a chaser over the threads, make sure there's no damage on there. And then I drilled a hole in the end, so once I put that in there, tighten it up, I can put this hitch pin on the other side, a little safety feature there. But that locks it in nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. Works out real good. So then I had to figure out how wide I wanted to make this. So let me show you how I did that. Now, to make sure I've got my mud flaps out far enough, I don't want to just line them up with the back bumper. I didn't think that was going to work. So I fastened a string to the rear wheel on the truck. I'm going to come out here and hold it up to the edge of the RV, and I'm going to mark where it intersects my pipe. And then I may cut the pipe about 1 inch longer, but at least that gives me a good reference point. That's probably the line of where any debris from the rear wheel is going to impact this camper. Now that I know where I'm going to cut it, how I'm going to fasten my mud flaps, I just got some 3/16 inch thick steel, 1.5 inches wide. I bought an 8-footer, cut it into 2-foot sections because that's the same width as the mud flap. And I'm going to weld this to the bottom of the pipe, and I'll have all my holes pre-drilled ahead of time. I'll do those. and I actually bought enough to sandwich the mud flaps. I'll have one welded on there, and then I'll put this one across the mud flap, run my bolts through it. That way it's sandwiched in, because everything I've seen where guys are just putting bolts through the rubber, you keep tightening them up and the rubber compresses and it stretches and the bolts will come loose. So I figured this way here, it's sandwiched in there. That ought to work real good. And then the last thing I'll do, once those are welded on, I bought some 3/8 pipe caps, and I just had to run them on a grinder, bench grinder, a little bit to clean them up. And those will fit right inside the end of the pipe, and I'll weld them. I may braze these so it's nice and clean, but that way I won't have a sharp edge on here. It'll have a little bit of roundness to it to protect if you run into it with your knee or something. So I'm gonna get these flat stocks drilled. I'll get this cut off, and then we can start welding it up. All right, everything's all welded together. All I got to do is sandblast it and paint it, and then I can bolt the flaps on. Okay, something I didn't mention, when I bolted this ball mount into place at the beginning, to get this pipe leveled up where I wanted it, I couldn't clamp it to this because these things aren't really cut flat and square. It was kind of wobbly. So I used a couple of tall automotive jack stands on each end of the pipe, and then I could sight down it, and I got it parallel with the bumper, and then looked behind the pipe here and got it so it was even with the bumper. Once I had it set where I wanted, I put a couple tacks on it, then I could weld it in place. All right, the paint is dry. I'm going to bolt these on. I bought all stainless hardware, the bolts, washers, and self-locking nylon nuts. I didn't want the bolts to rust up after about 6 months out in the weather. So these will look good for a long time. All right, there's the finished product. I think they look pretty good. And here's the breakdown of what I spent on these. The hardware and paint, I had about $20 in. $42 for the mud flaps. I got those off Amazon. The pipe and the 2 end caps was $25. The bar stock I got from a steel supply house local for 10 bucks. And the ball mount's right around $20. So a grand total about $115, $120. So that's pretty good savings, and I probably had 3 to 4 hours in it building it, and I like doing stuff myself like this, and I think they look pretty good, so hopefully they'll work out. I don't know if these will flap much in the wind, but they make those stainless weights you see on the back of semis. I may add those on later, so I'll see how they do. But anyway, thanks for watching.